Hey everyone, and welcome to my Storybook New Direction series, where I'll be talking about each of the 6 slim volumes that are being published in a new series by New Directions called Storybook ND, which are all being published on September 27th. This is a series that aims to deliver the pleasure one felt as a child reading a marvelous book from cover to cover in an afternoon. And so these are very short books. Most of them are either a collection of very short stories or a single novella. Most of them are between about 40 and 60 pages, with a few being a bit longer than that. And this is a series I've been very excited about for a long time because these really include some really big named authors. We have Clarice Lispector, Laszlo Krasnohorkai, Osumai Dazai, Helen DeWitt, Cesar Aira, and Yoko Tawada. And I mean, just look at these covers. I was very fortunate enough to be sent ARCs, so thank you, New Directions. But I should note that these are being published as hardcovers. And so these aren't the final copies. I have soft covers here. The final copies are these beautiful, slim hardcovers. So over the course of the next few weeks, in the spirit of reading these stories and enjoying them in a single immersive sitting, or maybe 2 in my case, I plan on reading these on my commute into and out of work. I hope to read it once on the way in, and then on the way back, either finish it or reread it and make a few notes before coming back home and turning on the camera and filming some thoughts. I should note that these videos aren't going to be super well thought out. I'm hoping to keep these quite short and give kind of my reactions to these stories rather than any deep analysis. And the first that I read this morning was The Woman Who Killed the Fish by the Brazilian author Clarice Lispector and translated by the renowned writer and translator Benjamin Moser. This is a collection of 4 short stories that were originally written for Clarice Lispector's own children, and these stories really do reflect that intended audience. All of these stories are really about humans and animals and the kind of human-animal relationship, and it's clear that they all have a moral lesson or 2 in mind. But these are, without question, children's literature. I mean, the second story begins with the line, "This story only works for children who like rabbits." These stories are very playful and read very much like children's literature, as they fall between a fable and just a lighthearted story. For me, they're a nice blend of, say, Aesop's fables and some of Tove Jansson's novels, in that they're all very simple, at least on the face of it, and into their prose style, and in their focus on this kind of childlike imagination. And they all elicit a perhaps naive, perhaps just innocent worldview, which is honestly, for me, a pretty nice change of pace. The opening of the title story sets the tone immediately. That woman who killed the fish, unfortunately, is me. But I promise you I didn't do it on purpose. Me of all people, who doesn't have the nerve to kill a living thing. I don't even always kill cockroaches. I give you my word that I'm someone you can trust. My heart is kind. Around me, I never let a child or an animal suffer. The title story is definitely my favorite from this collection, as it feels like it's the most narratively fleshed out. It's about, as you can guess from that opening, a woman whose fish has died, and is really about the narrator explaining what happened and explaining why they deserve to be forgiven. And to accomplish this task in a very innocent and rather narcissistic and very distractive narrative, she tells all of these different stories. She tells these stories about these 2 dogs who were friends but then had a falling out. She tells a story of a sea next to this enchanted island where all of these different species of fish live together in perfect harmony, etc. And all of this, of course, forces the reader to ask the pretty obvious question, is the narrator making all of this up to obfuscate from her responsibility for killing this fish? Well, she suspects that you'll ask that, and she writes, "You think I'm making this up? But if I swear to God that everything I told you in this book is true, would you believe me? Then I swear to God that everything I've told you is completely true and really happened. I respect boys and girls, and that's why I don't ever trick them." Like a fable, the lessons that the story is trying to convey are quite clear. But for me, what I found much more interesting is, rather than the moralistic lessons that the story is trying to convey, that these stories actually teach children how stories work and how to read stories. That is, while the story is more or less simply a fable, the main character, the narrator, isn't really just a character for children to mimic. She's narcissistic and quite fallible, as are a lot of us. Instead, the story invites the audience, especially children, to begin questioning the narrator and questioning the story. And of course, this gets at sort of simple lessons about truth-telling and how to face the truth and how to face someone who clearly isn't telling the truth, which to my mind really gets at fundamental questions about fiction and storytelling. why do we tell stories and how do we read them? These stories are meant to be fun. They're full of whimsy, though like the best children's literature, they do contain some truths about humans, and especially our place in the larger ecosystem and our relationship with animals. And they include genuine advice. Again, these stories were written for children and they really do reflect that. Another story called Almost True is from the perspective of a dog whose owner's name is Clarice, and it just opens with this great line that reminds me so much of Witold Gombrowicz's diary. It opens, once upon a time, me. I just love that. But so as a grown adult, I was, I'll be honest, a bit underwhelmed by these stories, as I have been in the past with Clarice Lispector. There's something about her writing style that just has never fully clicked with me, unfortunately. But these stories were fun and silly while also being about very serious things like death, love, and imagination. And they reminded me a lot of the fable-like stories that I, when I was a kid, really adored. And so if we're judging these stories based on that merit of what they set out to do was to be children's literature, then I think they succeed. Readers of children's literature, of fables, of, again, authors like Tove Jansson, I think will find much in this collection to enjoy. I do think I'll have more to say about the other storybooks coming up, as a lot of them are just single narratives, so they're a bit more meaty, and they're by some authors that I am very, very fond of. So I'm very much looking forward to my next commute. But for now, thanks for watching.